So I think it's valid.
This verse probably represents that sin offering. Yeah. So pretty cool. Again, one of those subtleties that we sort of miss, right, in our language. And finally, the last one is the trespass offering. This was for known sins, and also sins against things that were holy or consecrated to God. And this was also an offering of the fat of the animal. The priests and some of their family members were able to eat the rest of this one. And also, I think it's important that restitution had to be made for whatever the sin was. So, sometimes we can be like, oh, I sinned, but, Jesus took care of that, right? So it's dealt with. But you know what? We still have to go to that person that we sinned against and ask for forgiveness.
Yeah. Amen.
If we damage somebody's property, it doesn't mean like, oh God, I'm so sorry. I took their money. So I know you've forgiven me. No. You need to go give that money back, right? Plus some. And so that's what restitution was. Just a reminder that God forgives us, but we still make things right as much as we can, right? So trespass offering. And we see Jesus as, again, the offering for sin, both intentional and unintentional. And not as the sacrifice that keeps having to be made over and over and over again. And that's why it's so different for us. We're on the other side. And I'm so thankful that we're on the other side of the cross. You know what I mean? That we don't have to keep bringing an animal, from our herd. I don't know about you. I don't have any. So that'd be a little tough. But that we don't have to keep making these sacrifices for sin. So God gave them this temporary way to have right relationship with Him. But we can be so thankful that He gave us a permanent way through Jesus to be able to have relationship with Him. And so why these sacrifices? So just a few thoughts. First of all, it set them apart. We said at the beginning, all of this was so that they could be holy. Because when you have God's standard up here, to be in relationship with God, you pretty much have to be up with His standard. And that's holiness. So God has made us holy in Jesus. And through the sacrifice. Through that, it allowed them to then approach God. And also, another thing is they gave from what they had, right? So there was still a part that they had to play. They had to bring that animal for the sacrifice. There was a part that they played. It was still transactional between them and God. But they just couldn't do anything about the sin itself. He had to take care of that through this sacrifice. And so this was a way of them to maintain their relationship with God. So this weekend, I kind of want to end, I'm just reflecting on this weekend. I took a couple, we took a few Boy Scouts to this camp out. And it was a little bit different. It was like a camp out for scouts that have been selected by their peers to, with a special honor. You know what I mean? And the cool thing about this is what really stood out to me is that, you could be kind of prideful, right? I'm set apart. I'm kind of specially honored or specially selected, like the people of Israel were, right? And the surprise was this, that when they got there and they were going through all their training stuff, the message that was communicated with them was not that, oh, you are so worthy of honor. It was instead, you have an obligation. You have an obligation to lead. And the way that they have an obligation, it was in two things. One is there's a set of ideals that we have for you. And we want you, as part of this obligation, to hold up these ideals. That's how you reflect well on this organization, is by following these things. the other thing that was so powerful to me is that they said that the best way to do that is by serving. By serving.
That's awesome.
And I was just like, this is how it is with us and God. You know? God has called out his people to be this nation of priests. He's given us the ability to come to his standards of righteousness by the sacrifice of Jesus. But then he says to every single one of us, now I want you to reflect me. I want you to reflect my ideals. There's an obligation that kind of comes with this. I have called you to be separate, to be different, to be a light to this world. And there is a lot of darkness in this world. And so if you can be even a little bit of light for me, you are going to shine bright. And at Vineyard, I believe that that is what God is saying to us this morning.
Amen.
He has a call on you. I might have the title of pastor, but you know what? All of us in this place, we are all priests. We are all pastors. We are all spiritual leaders. Because all around us, there are people that are not following God. They don't know his plans. They don't know who he is. And they need to see people who are different. And they need to be able to go, man, why do you ... Why in your work, why do you give our boss like so much effort? Like you don't have to do that. Do the minimum, right? And you go, no. Because I reflect the character and the nature of God. So I'm going to give my best.
Amen.
I'm going to give my all. And people will notice that, right?
Yep.
They'll be like, what is so different about this person? Or maybe there's the person that's... I think of high school, that person that sat in the cafeteria at the table by themselves. You know why? Because nobody else wanted to hang out with them. And we should be the people that get up from our tables and walk over there and say, you know what? Hey, I'm Kevin. Like, what's your name? Like, how are you? You know? And people are like, man, why did that person do that? Why would they talk to that person? You know? It's love. It's that root of love that Lexi was talking about earlier. Everything rooted in love. Because it reflects the ideals of the Father. Let's all stand together.